Kyle here from allmeatreviews.blogspot.com. All right, so this week, today's Monday, December 12th, 2022. I'm going to do the top 50. I may just, probably just, I don't know, may just do 10 albums of video in this last 50, the top 50 of modern progressive art rock albums, as I've written there. So starting out at number 50, House of Fools, Live and Learn, the debut album, which came out in 2007. Um, they're a band, and this album is an album that I went back to many times and just got better and better. Class of 2007. There's a lot of Pink Floyd elements. There's there's a lot of they've been compared to Keane and who's the other band, Flaming Lips, but I like them much better than both those bands. Although Keane, I probably need to give more time to. But yeah, there's a Queen element to some of their, particularly in the guitar tones. You know, it's such a great record. This record, it flows so well. I mean, the highlights: Until It's Over, Kiss the Haze, Better Part of Me, Coke and Smoke, and the closing track, Live and Learn, the title track rather. But I just can't say enough good things about this album. Even though I think the record that followed it, maybe the production was a little bit better. There's just so much charm to it. Every track has like segues, little guitar texture, vocal arrangements. The lyrics are relatable. Dark humor, yeah. This is there's a lot of other bands that are on this list of this style, but this band, they're just ignored or never respected. They only have, like, people like House of Fools. Those are the only people that like them. They love them. No one like casually likes House of Fools. They either don't know them, they didn't care for them much, or they love them. And I'm in the love category. But anyway, yeah. I mean, I compare them a little bit to, say, like Ben Sinister and Ramona Falls a little bit in some ways. Often piano-driven rock, with a lot of emotion and heart. But yeah, Live and Learn, an all-time classic, one of my favorite records of the last 2 decades, and in 2007, one of the best records of that year, of course. The debut album from House of Fools, number 50. Number 49, the debut album, which is relatively short for an album, but it was like 35 minutes, from The Deer Hunter from 2006, when Casey Crescendo still was a member of the Receiving End of Sirens. He recorded this. He wrote a lot of it. I want to say both this and Act 2, maybe around the time or even a little before he was in the Receiving End of Sirens. But it's 38 minutes. But if you have the Battesimo del Fuoco and the River North, which are just sort of little ditties at the end and the beginning that bookmark it. So and I talked about this in my review. It was like a year and a half ago now. It was like a little over. It was 20. Yeah, it would have been the summer or like September of 21. My favorite tracks on here, maybe my favorite, The Deer Hunter's top 5 for sure, is This Hand Matches Tongue. The Beach Boys harmonies are just incredible on that track. I get sucked in. I'm a sucker for that. The way Casey writes those harmonies, the passion, sort of. It's got a lot of imagery and kind of setting the stage for the whole, story of the act and the concept, rock opera of sort, you could say. But like City Escape, 1878, I love also the sort of Beach Boys harmonies. 49, 40. The Pimp and the Priest is another classic staple. It's just, this is a great collection of tracks, and if you call it a full length, I mean, the songs aren't short, most of the proper songs, but it's really just getting your feet wet, getting like breaking the ice and getting for what was to come, of course. So but yeah, Act 1, the Lake South, the River North from The Deer Hunter, introducing the world, introducing the Deer Hunter to the world, DEAR, of course. And some people think this is considered that their favorite, and I have a hard time arguing with it. It's a classic element, and it's been like whatever now, 16 years since it came out. So anyway, number 49, Act 1, The Lake South, the River North from 2006 from The Deer Hunter. Number 48, a band, an album specifically, largely that appeals to fans of the Deer Hunter and this kind of style of, very kind of energetic chamber baroque rock, with a lot of folk instruments and stuff like that. A lot of segues, a lot of dynamics. Tear and Everything After from Hotel Laughing 3, also a debut album from 2011. In fact, this list, I need to do some stats to tally up. There's probably 50 debut albums on this list, but they're great records regardless of their debut or not. But I just adore this record. In fact, I think it's a little bit low, more because a lot of records I've listened to more in recent years. So I may be underrating it a little bit, but regardless of that, oh man, like Bad Canterbury is just, that should have been a radio hit. It's so good, so sort of goosebump worthy. Even though the lyrical and tone of it lyrically seems dark, it's a happy song. It sounds happy. Noah, that's an anthem. The concept of this album, it is at least a loose concept, is about Noah's Ark, I believe, or at least I always think, yeah, because I remember reading about that. Like the guys were interviewed, I think, but anyway, Weather Maps for Nikolai is another favorite. The original track list didn't even have that song, but I love the energy on that song. Other favorites, I'd say the title track. I think of Dredge when I think of that song. It's kind of multi-part. It segues really well, but it reminds me of sort of stuff off like Pariah a little bit with the guitar textures and stuff, and the way it kind of goes from part to part. God's Great Gumball Machine, Barnaby's Bison Blind, Another Harvard Renaissance, Winchester Devil Grass. There's so many moments. Like every song has moments I love. It would be the guitar texture, the use of like mandolin, the vocal arrangements. Anyway, this Sanctuary is another one. This just backhand. That's a typo. It looks like, is it bad? It looks like backhand. BAC. It's Bad Canterbury. Anyway, I'm probably the one who added this. I probably need to fix that. Anyway. Yeah, this is a terrific album that, was my album of the year for 2011. Kind of splitting hairs. I probably still consider it my album of the year for that year, so anyway, Tear and Everything After from Hotel the Laughing Tree, the debut album, number 48 on the top 50 modern progressive art rock albums list for me. So moving on to the next list of 5, number 47, 3 from the same year, so it's like, that's why it's splitting hairs. The Ghost You Gave to Me, which is, I believe, now the highest and the final 3 album on this list. This album has Only Child, which is one of their best epics. It's, again, dynamics really work really well. This album also has React, which is just an earworm. Sparrow, High Times. That's like a 1, 2, 3 punch of tracks that just with energy, earworms. A lot of heavy guitar riffs. The title track is another favorite on this album. It's Alive. That one's kind of crazy. Sadly, this is the last 3 album. Might be the final 3 album. I don't know. I think Joey's still playing him. He's getting gigs doing a lot of like tribute or covers, like between Steely Dan, the Beatles, and other bands like that. But someday, hopefully, we'll get some music from him as a solo artist and or maybe 3. I know they did a reunion stream, I want to say a couple years ago, and I was like conflicting with something. I forget the reason I wasn't able to check it out. I felt really bad about that. But yeah, this is a fantastic 3 record. A lot of the 3 catalog is consistent. The 3 albums, especially their last 3 albums, ironically, no pun intended. But I love this record, and if you're a 3 fan and you've never heard it, or if you're a fan of sort of like Coheed Cambria, definitely one to check out. 3, The Ghost You Gave to Me from 2011 at number 47. Number 46. So I'm taking a little bit of liberty. I edited this, and I just put the entire Dirt Poor Robins, The Raven Locks, compilation as 46 because I took those other. I had Act 3, Act 2, and Act 1 previously. So I talked about Act 1 and Act 2. Act 1 has Solemn Dream, maybe their best track. Act 2. Just going revisiting. It has the Solemn Awakening, revisits that Evergreen, Speak to Me. It's got a lot of terrific tracks. And Act 3 I consider the best, but I was like, to really evaluate how this is through the whole act series, because every one of the acts is pretty short, like 27 to like 30 some odd minutes. Act 3 I think is no exception. It might be slightly longer. Actually, it's 49 minutes, so that's kind of why it made some sense. But I mean, it's just I look at it as one large piece now more than anything. Just like the another record, we'll be talking about them from them soon. Or did I already talk about that? Well, anyway, one of the other records. Welcome to Lady Hell and Great Vacation are two of my favorites on this. We forgot we were human. The Reprise. Woe to Me. There's just Furthest Star. There's almost an ethereal space rock quality at some of these songs. But I found like when I was getting into all the acts, Irony's another one I enjoyed, that, the variety and the depth of this record just kind of made it better than the other two, but you attach the other two onto this and it's like 70 some odd minutes and it's just one fantastic trip of an epic record. And so, Act 3, Act 2, Act 1, all is one together. There's so much great music on that, it makes sense. So anyway, number 46, the Raven Locks, compilation of Raven Locks, all the Raven Lock acts together. So number 45, Mew again, their 2009 album, No More Stories, long title of course, are told today. I'm sorry they washed away. No more stories. The world is gray. I'm tired. Let's wash away. Also known as just No More Stories. Of course, this does not include the services of guitarist Bo Madsen. I forget who played. I don't know if Jonas played the guitar because he left the band because he had he was raising a family and stuff like that. I forget. I guess, yeah. I mean, Jonas had to play the guitar on this, which is weird because the guitar parts are really good. It doesn't even list it on the credits there, but interesting. There's a lot of things to this album that are great. This is the first new Mew album after I became a fan, really, that came out. I became a fan in 2006. The Glass Onion Kites had come out not that long after that, not long before that, but it's really a sweet. I have my favorites. Sometimes Life Isn't Easy. It's probably always been my number one track. Then I would put Introducing Paddleless Players, Beach. I did a podcast with the Mew podcast, Mew X podcast. We talked about Beach, so I've kind of dissected Beach. It has some different meanings to it. Hawaii Dream, Vaccine. Of course, it has the intermezzos molded in here. There's a lot of sort of, orchestral is not the right word. They, I guess, took on sort of alternate personality, a little bit like the Beatles did with Sgt. Pepper's. I forget the name of the band. They called themselves something else, like the Death something. The Death Squad. I forget the exact name. The Mew fans would just crucify me for that. But I remember hearing that. I was thinking, well, this is their best album start to finish, which I don't know if I could disagree with that, but I haven't been as attached to this as I was back in 2009. I was listening to this a ton. Repeater Beater's another highlight. I mean, there's a lot of the dreaminess. This is more and progressive in some ways, in that they interwove the whole concept into one big record, I guess. There's a lot of odd time signatures using a lot of percussion. I remember sometimes Life Ain't Easy reminded me a fair amount of Anathello, and I also get a Harry Potter and also a Science of Sleep thing from this. There's a lot of sort of wintry, ethereal textures and images that come into my head when I hear this record. It's a terrific record. I mean, the artwork, Mew's strength has never been their artwork. It's kind of cheesy, but it doesn't matter to me. It captures it in a lot of ways. So, the title's a mouthful. You just call it No More Stories. But, yeah, one of their best records. The last kind of classic period Mew record, I would say. Well, their classic period, if there is such a thing. So anyway, from 2009, Mew's No More Stories. Number 44, The Color Spectrum, The Complete Collection. Like the Dirt Poor Robins, the Raven Locks, I wouldn't be putting EPs separately. And on my EPs list, I didn't include, you have to put the whole color spectrum all together. All 9 EPs, 36 tracks, some, whatever it is, 2.5 hours worth of music. So from a quantity standpoint, this has more music on it than any record on this list. And from a quality standpoint, it matches up. I talked about this in my Deer Hunter series of album videos, whatever it was last winter. And I don't love everything on this, but the ambition I totally respect and appreciate. And the best stuff is some of the best music. I mean, truthfully, Indigo and the Indigo Child series that's now going on with the Deer Hunter is my favorite. It's many people's favorites. Mandala is my favorite track, but the whole Indigo, even though it's just Casey, didn't have the guests writing a lot of like synth, synth rock songs, synth pop rock songs that with a lot of textures. They all work. It's dreamy, and very goosebump worthy. All the other every EP has songs I enjoy, some more than others besides Indigo. And I talked about in that series. I did two or three videos. I think I did 3 videos on it. Violet, of course, sounds the most like the Axe. Mr. Mellum's an obvious highlight on that one. White, Home, I'll never get that out of my head. No God, well, not no, Lost, but not all gone. The Blue EP is the most post-rock sounding. The Collapse of the Great Tide Cliffs is one of my favorites. So is Trapdoor. I just keep on going over. There's a lot of tracks to appreciate on the color spectrum. Echo, Stuck on a Wire on the Fence. On the Red EP, we've got A Score to Settle. The Black EP, Never Forgive, Never Forget. This Body, the Body is just over the top. Some of the sort of darkest sort of an industrial music the Deer Hunter's ever done. Filth and Squalor as well. Yellow, of course, has Misplaced Devotion, which I love. She's Always Singing, which is another highlight. The Canopy off of Green and The Inheritance I've always enjoyed. I always think of some father or father-in-law not giving his inheritance to the son who betrayed his daughter or something. I don't remember. Just it's the father. The son betrayed his parents or his father, and so that I don't know that's a very memorable track. Anyway, the color spectrum is a trip. It's a lot, of course, but it's again as a whole, it is equal if not greater than the sum of its parts. From the Deer Hunter, the color spectrum, the most ambitious thing that Casey's probably ever done. Of course, there's a bunch of guests too, including Jesse Raborti and the guys from Manchester Orchestra. But anyway, the color spectrum, number 44, the complete collection from 2011. Number 43, the highest archive album on this list. You All Look the Same to Me from 2002. I love Controlling Crowds, but this record still holds the number 1 spot for Archive's catalog for me. And I need to do a video on them, or just on this album specifically. There's a huge, especially on the opening track again, huge Pink Floyd Animals influence on this, but not to the point where it's just like, why don't I just listen to Animals? They extended it and made it their own in a lot of ways. It's great. That's an epic. It flows perfectly. I never get sick of it. Beyond that, I haven't revisited this album in a long time. That's the reason I need to do an archive video. I've been mentioned it many times, but I just remember thinking this is like taking Pink Floyd and just kind of bringing them into the 21st century in some ways, and specifically the Animals record, which is my favorite Pink Floyd record, although I love many other Pink Floyd records, but and this was like their second or third record. It's kind of a breakthrough. But I think, an Archive's a band that's been under the radar. The most buzz they ever got was in 2009 with Controlling Crowds. Yeah, actually, it was their third. Take My Head, which I have not listened to in a long time, if ever. Londinium, their debut, came out before it. But anyway, they're a very prolific band, but they're a cult band at the same time. People that like Pure Reason Revolution really owe it to themselves to check them out. Archive. Their new record's really good too, but this to me still has always stood up. Yeah, Finding It So Hard with the other epic. There's two just kind of terrific epics that have that Pink Floyd element. They capture it. So anyway, You All Look the Same to Me from Archive number 43 from 2002. So we're going to do 10, I think. So I'll do 2 more and then call this a video. I'm looking at for time here. We're looking at 19 minutes. Yeah, we'll see. All right. So number 42, Cloud Cult's The Seeker, which is interesting. I have it. This must be the vinyl copy. No, they never added the artwork, which is just stupid, but, oh, there it is. It just wasn't loading in. Silly me. Anyway, this was a very special record to me. I know it hasn't been as well received among even casual fans and the Cloud Cult fan base as much, because it correlated with the films. It's really like a soundtrack to the film The Seeker of the same name, which had Josh Radnor. The film, you have a death that happens and it really is moving. That's what kind of pushes it over the top. But there's just a lot of tracks I love, and there aren't any tracks I really care to skip. Between No Hell, that has an earworm. It's the classic gang vocal energy that Cloud Cult does so well. I would also add Days to Remember. You Were Not Alone. You Were Not Alone is probably my favorite track, although it's almost hard for me never to burst into tears when I hear that, because I think of that's when she sees her, when her father dies. She comes back and sees the father in the film. I'm kind of spoiling it, but it's been 6 plus years, almost 7 years. That's just poignant. It's gut wrenching. She lived many years without after her father died when she was a girl, and then she looks back into time or forward in time. She's able to see him, and it's just like, oh, he's back. It's just thinking about it, I feel like bursting into tears. It's just so gut wrenching and melancholy and just moving. Through the Ages is sort of an uplifting end to it. Time Machine Invention. Yeah, it's the whole thing about traveling back in time. I mean, I don't know. The fan base didn't really go for it as much as I did. I think this is among, if not their best record. I don't have it number one among their records, but it's pretty hard not to argue. At one point I was totally sold. Like, this is, even though it's not that long of a record, it's only, it's 50 minutes. It seems like it's a little bit shorter than that. To the Great Unknown is great. I mean, there's a lot of the classic Cloud Cult, vocal harmonies, the melodies get stuck in your head. You get the cello, you get the French horn, the trumpet, the percussion, it's just, but it's sort of almost been refined to a point, and it fit the film. I mean, the film part of this makes it even better, and that's why it's this high. It might not have, in some ways, for just, on paper, maybe so some Cloud Cult albums that might be slightly better to me, but it doesn't matter to me, because there's just that film part of it, and the cinematic part of it pushes it over the top. So, anyway, The Seeker from Cloud Cult from 2016 was like number 2 on my list. It was number 1 for a long time that year. I know that was the year that we lost all these musicians from, Bowie to Prince to George Michael, but I think of 2016 and that album as much as anything. Anyway, number 41, and I think the final album for this video. I don't know. The video is going to go pretty damn long. I might do another video just to separate them. Get to Heaven from Everything Everything. Also, like Cloud Cult, this is my number 1 and many people's number 1 Everything Everything album. It was a breakthrough record for them in a lot of ways. Their debut album was charming. The second album was very polarizing. Some people arc, but this album came out in 2015, and it kind of like supplanted Everything Everything as a band always to pay attention to, and that they kind of matured. And this isn't the version I originally heard. This is the vinyl version, which I still yet to get on vinyl. But the original, I remember when this came out in 2015, the version I was listening to initially was longer. I don't think it was on Spotify. Maybe on YouTube or the download that I got. It had more than 11 tracks even. But I'll say that the first 6 tracks on this record, the energy is just almost unmatched. They just every track has something to enjoy. It's the math rock, it's the little quirkiness, regret, the vocal arrangements. Get to Heaven, Distant Past, To the Blade is the one I played on the radio. If I chose one track, the opening track is still probably my favorite. The other thing I always will associate this album with is I always kind of felt like when I was listening to it, I was going back in time. I was being brought back to like the 80s. There's an 80s element to the sound on here. It's a very polished production on this album, but new wave. And I feel like, I was in like a dream. I feel like I'm going back in time in like an adventure dream, or just like, very sci-fi-ish in a lot of ways. Get to Heaven. I need to do an Everything video, and I'll probably just revisit the whole thing, and I can go into more detail. Spring, Summer, Winter, Dread, that's a fair. A lot of people think that's one of the biggest earworms. I think some of the radio stations even played that. So, this is a terrific record. I mean, from a band who has many really, great to just, landmark, but really just awesome records. This is the crowning jewel. This would be my first suggestion to anyone who's never heard Everything. Check this record out. In fact, a friend of mine named Alan had never heard them, and this is the record. He liked Foals. Like, for Foals fans, for fans of Block Party, for fans of, I don't know, there's a lot of different bands you can compare them to. There's a little bit of an 80s Yes element to their sound. He totally enjoyed this. So, Everything's Get to Heaven at number 41 on the modern progressive art rock albums list. So we're looking at Yeah, 24 minutes. Yeah, I think I'll see if I can do one more and separate. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. I appreciate people that have subscribed. Really appreciate that. I'm doing my best trying to bring stuff to YouTube that maybe isn't always on YouTube. But again, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.